Such a wonderful time. I hope y'all will go home and talk to your husbands, your husbands about what they heard. But I have the pleasure of working out with her, and she is just such a blessing and loves mamas and children. And I know, I don't think she'd mind me saying this, if you ever have any questions or need to talk to someone, she has a lot of experience. She'll tell you she has 7 children that she has homeschooled. So she's definitely the woman to visit with about teaching multiple ages. So
well, like you said, I'm Maranatha Chapman. I do have 7 children. One of my grandson, he goes here to Kings, and we also attend the church here. And I have graduated for my kids, and I still have 3 of them at home with me, and I've loved it. And I can honestly tell you, anybody that tells you that they have the perfect method, that they have the thing that's going to make sure and ensure that it's all easy and perfect, don't listen to them. Run. Because here's the thing, is that God's going to equip each one of you, each one of us, with specifics for our family, specifics for our kids. And so it's like, it's really cool to come and listen to people, okay, you've done this before, how did you make it work? Take all these notes, and then you go home and you go, wait, that did not work for me. I tried that. And so I will say that there is no perfect way, and there is no perfect family. You know what I'm saying? But to offer your family, offer who your kids are, offer who you guys are, and say, Lord, here's who we are, and will you teach us how to make this work? Over the years, there were times where I had, teaching older ones, that high school level, whatever, teaching the little ones, and then I think this one was nursing, and it was like, how do I manage all of this? Because they were all, it's not like they were all packed in there together. It was, it's older, and then we took, had a long break, then we had some more, and then had some more. And so it's kind of been a lot scattered out, but I will say that with every single one of the seasons that he's led us through, he gave me a strategy. He gave us a strategy. He gave us exactly what was needed, but we had to be willing to float that. So I kind of want to give a little bit of what that is. I'm going to get a little practical, but I'm also going to kind of give overview so that you can plug your own stuff into it. So one of the biggest things I think starting off with is being all in. So like what I mean by that is, let's say you were going to start a garden. Well, what if you are just kind of half committed? You're going to get fruit at the, vegetables, fruit at the end of it. If you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to plant all my seeds, but I don't forget the weeding, forget the watering. I'm half in. What are you going to get at the end? Any of you garden know that you will not get anything, right? You'll get a headache and a hassle in an overgrown area. Or if you're going to commit to a job and you just put half in, and you're kind of like, I kind of think I can do it, but I kind of don't know that I can. It doesn't work, does it? And so with this, in teaching your children, or that I've got a baby, and I've got a toddler, and I've got this, is inside of you first and foremost, before you ever start the school year, before you get a lot of momentum of going, God, have you called me to this? And if so, have you equipped me? Because I think sometimes the belief is like, okay, I can see that you've equipped so-and-so, and they seem to think they really do well here, and it looks like they know what they're doing. But to really know and believe, has he equipped me to do this? And if he's leading in this, he's going to give you everything you need. You know what I'm saying? So it starts with that first thing of knowing that you can do it, fully being in, and fully committing to whatever it is. Because half-hearted, you won't last. You know what I'm saying? If it's kind of like, I kind of think this will work, let's see, it doesn't last. So finding every day, and so when you do have those days that it's difficult, reminding yourself, I know for me that's been a big thing for me, is reminding myself, what have you called me to, Lord? Is there grace? If you've called me to something, if you're leading in something, there is that grace that I'm gonna be able to walk in what you've given me. I think also it's one of those things that a lot of times, the subject here we're talking about is co-teaching with babies and toddlers. Is this I think a lot of times it's really easy to get going, and we kind of fight against it. It's almost like this deep belief that we have that it will not work. And so if you have that, spend the next couple of weeks going, okay, God, help me change that, and be honest about it, of going, if deep down I don't think this is going to work, guess what happens? It doesn't work. You know what I mean? But if deep down you go, wait, I think we can do this and I can make this work, show me how to make this work, Lord. He will give you. But if you fight against it, it's just this constant battle. Because have you ever heard people, it's like, I've got this one, and it's just out of their mouths, it's just this constant battle that's going on. And it doesn't mean that it's not hard at times, but it's like there's a settledness of, a wrestling that we can do beforehand of going, I don't want to fight this process. Instead, I want to invite you into this process, Lord, and you've equipped me. You know, I'm the parent. I feel led to do this, and so you're going to equip me to do this. One of the things that I think is really key is to always have a plan. I think, and I mean, but it's one of those things that it's like we need an overview plan, a big picture plan, and then we need that shorter season plan, and then we need that day-to-day plan. Whenever you have a child that you're teaching, and then you have little ones coming up with them, is that if you start your day several steps behind, if you start your day and it's like, well, you know, here's what's in my heart to do, but you don't have an actual plan, it's like you're running from behind. If y'all ever experienced that with your kids, it's like you think it's going to be this spectacular Saturday, you slept too long, and you are literally running from behind the whole day, right? And everything you wanted to do didn't happen. Or you're trying to go on a trip or pack for a trip, and it's like you're just steps behind. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to follow my kids. I want to lead my kids. And so it's like, how do I do this? And because you're going to have all kinds of, there's many factors. I'm like, you can't tell me how many times your child's going to cry today, or exactly when they're going to use the bathroom, or, I mean, any of that. I mean, a baby. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that are unpredictable, but yet there's that place of having a plan of how we're going to do this, what we're going to do. So what I mean by that is everything from, I think, when you have little ones, to wake up and like, or beforehand of knowing exactly what's going to happen. So like for me, for instance, is I spend time every few months, and I kind of I always have notebooks. I know a lot of you people do this with your computers, so y'all laugh at my notebooks, but I have notebooks, and it's like, this is my brain, and if I lose them, I'm stuck. So that's why I carry a backpack with me everywhere I go, and here's the notebook for this area of my life, and the notebook for this area of my life, and they're packed in there, and it's with me everywhere. And but it's that every few months I have a plan for this next season. Everything I want to accomplish, everything that I want to see, fruit in my kids, or things in my marriage, or things with eating, things with sleep, things, you know, everything of overview. And then I start putting it together of how to make that work. You know what I'm saying? So how to put that together. And then every week, I usually on a Sunday afternoon or evening, and I've done this from the time my kids are little, is I get the actual plan for the week down to details of, here's my Lord willing plan, because obviously baby may not sleep when you're thinking, and but having that plan of, here's where I'm going to tackle this and this and this. And so looking at all areas of life, and this is what I call managing. It's like you can't just go, okay, I'm just going to school my kids and hopefully everything else will work. It doesn't work out like that. There's the food to be made, and then you've got to clean it, and then you have a husband that comes in and wants to connect when you're trying to clean, you know, the meal, and then the baby that cries, and then it's like all these things. How do I get it all done? And if you can see it, and for me, I'm a write it out kind of person, of here's where I've got those places to to do this and to do this and to do this. Does that make sense? And so that I know that I'm covering this area and this area and this area and this area, and my hands are on it. Okay, so it's having a very specific plan of how to get all those things done, and then working out your schedule. I think with little ones, I think the idea that you can just start at some point during the day, it doesn't really work. And I've seen it myself, I've seen it with other families. I think the very best thing you can do, strategy-wise, when you are trying to co-teach, when you are having little ones, is to start your day extremely intentional, and how you begin, I think, is key. Meaning, I would encourage you not to like sleep as long as the kids sleep and see what you can get. I would encourage you to get up, if you can, before the kids. Get your time where you are focused, you're connected, you know you're settled, and then you can lead. Does that make sense? And I mean, I understand the tired issue. Like, I really do. And some of the strategies have to be going to bed earlier, or maybe there's a power nap at some point. But if you start behind and you go, because I've been out here a lot of homeschoolers or people who teach, it's like, oh, that's why we do it, and the plan, it'll all come together. And I'm thinking, it just doesn't. You know what I mean? Maybe one week it did. But kids don't work out like that. And I think kids respond to structure. I think there's two kinds of people, okay? And it can be, really, you can see weakness in it and strength in it. There's the people that are the uptighties, you know what I mean? And everything is so rigid down to you put your shoes on at this time and you do this and everything. And they're the uptighties. And they're the ones that need to learn to flow, because you're trying to like do spelling at 9 o'clock and we're starting at 9 o'clock and the kids tell us food in their mouth and it's uptight and it's, they're just so rigid and they kind of take all the enjoyment out of it. You know what I mean? That type, it's like the true weakness of that type is they're going to suck all the fun out of it and the enjoyment out of it, and you don't stop to connect and look at each other in the eyes, and it's, I'm the teacher, and hush up kid, and you're supposed to take a nap right now, and it's everyone's a mess, and you're uptight, and you might achieve, but it's like you can't stand your life. And so that's the extreme with the uptighties, right? Then there's the go with the flowers, and it's like, oh, it'll all work out. And they think it does. And everyone in their life goes, no, it doesn't. We're the ones cleaning up behind you. We're the ones. There you go, working with this type, their extreme weaknesses, it just doesn't always work. And their motto is constantly, it'll all work out. It just doesn't. And so for me, I go, if you see, and some of you guys aren't extremes in that, but if you see I have a propensity towards this or I have a propensity towards this, it's go, okay, see the flaws in either one, but see the strengths in either one. But I am convinced that as a parent, especially if you've got a couple of them, is that you have to grow other capacities. And this idea of this is just the way I am, I can tell you, I had to grow other capacities. You know what I'm saying? That it's like I have to learn to manage 50 things at one time. And that may not be who I am, but I can learn, I have one that it was like this person was a go with the flower, one of my kids, she was a super go with the flower. Didn't mind if things aren't finished, didn't mind being late, and I had to teach her how to stay within structure and programs, and she ended up being an adult who has discipline, everything is scheduled, and you would never know that was a weakness of hers. Do you know what I mean? And so grow capacities that you need to, and if you can identify yourself there, ask your husband, ask your best friends, ask each other, how do you see me, and where do you think I can grow in this? This will save so much. I know it doesn't seem like it's practical at all, but it's the thing that really, really helps your day in that it's that if you're someone that you need more structure, you need to decide breakfast is at such and such time every single morning. Then do that, you know what I mean? But if you're also the kind that you've got your plan and someone tells you you're a little bit of the uptight one, learn how to take your plan, and we call it a Lord-willing plan. Say, God, here's my plan. I want to do my plan, and I don't want anything messing up my plan. Lord, teach me how to flow with this. Teach me how to change my plan when I need to. Teach me how to come in and learn how to erase and go, and if you look at some of my papers, it's like there's scratch marks and there's, you know what I'm saying? It's like I have to adjust that, with my plan. But have a plan. Does that make sense? And it is so, so key. And you don't want to start behind, and you don't want your kids to be the ones leading. And that's one of the biggest flaws I see is whether it's you have a little strong personality type or you're unsure, if your kids are in charge and if they're the ones leading and you let them know you don't know what you're doing, we're not getting anywhere. And I'm just being really honest. It's like you're just going to fight constantly uphill. And so when you see, okay, God, here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses, here's the things I'm unsure about, but I present it to you, you're in me, you know what to do. You're going to give me the plan, and every day, every morning, offer it to Him and say, here's where I'm at, and I want you to equip these kids through me, and you can. You know what I'm saying? And then go with it, but be strong in that leadership. Does that make sense? So manage, get a schedule, down to, I think, meals, when you do certain subjects, all of those kind of things. And then the other thing with little ones especially, because they change their schedules so often, babies do. I keep looking over here. I know some of you guys have babies too, but I see the babies over here. Is you constantly have to assess and then rework your schedule. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, yes, we've got this. And we're 3 months in and I'm like, what just happened? And you think all of a sudden I missed it, and you go, no. And it took me forever to get this one. It's like, oh, I have to remake this whole thing. This was a beautiful schedule, but now the baby doesn't cooperate with the schedule anymore. And it's okay. It doesn't mean you've done something wrong. It means their little lives are like this long so far, and 3 months is a long time for them. So if they stayed on a little schedule for 3 months, that was awesome. They're ready for that new schedule now. Toddlers, sometimes you see this new little attitude pop up. And you have to deal with it. And you can't just go, but this is math time. You know what I'm saying? And you have to flip. So you have to assess, and you have to reassess, and you have to, move things around. And so make sure you flow with that. Make sure if you're an uptight type, you have to flow every day. Tell yourself, flow. This is my Lord-willing plan, and readjust it. If you're the kind that just wants to think it's all going to work out, make yourself stay on a schedule. And I think ones like that, it's good to have accountability with other moms, probably a little more than even with your husband. I think it's better to have that with other moms and go, hey, how'd you do on getting this done, you know? Also, if you're someone that doesn't like to wake up at a certain time, find that time to wake up that you are steps ahead, okay? So then we go on to, in the being confident in leading, what would happen if, I'm going to paint a couple scenarios. What would happen if I was a CEO of a company and I walked into a business meeting and I looked at all my workers, I looked at all my employees, and I'm like, okay, here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do today, and y'all want to, you know, see if y'all can work with me on this, and I wasn't confident, you know what I'm saying, and it's like I kind of get the plan, but I kind of don't get the plan, and I offer it, and then I back off of it, and I'm hoping you're going to like it. What would happen to that company? It doesn't go anywhere, right? It's real sweet, but it doesn't go anywhere. Let's say if I'm a coach of a team, and I come in and I'm like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Do y'all like that? Are y'all good with that? It's like we have this idea sometimes as a mom that it's like, to connect with our kids and be loving, we got to present them all of our weaknesses and problems, or, you know, show this side, and it's with our children. We're to lead them and be confident. You can say before talking to your kid, oh, Lord Jesus, help me. I have no idea how to handle this. I still wake up every morning and go, Lord, help. Lord, I don't know, but you know. I wasn't one that just came into all this equipped. I mean, I didn't grow up having a mom. She left when I was little. And I mean, my dad was sent home to die. I kind of lived like a little orphan, and different people helped. And I mean, I didn't come into this knowing. I mean, my husband didn't have, his dad left when he was little. My mom left when I was little. We literally came into this gig going, we have no clue what we're doing, Lord, but you will teach us. I mean, seriously, and that's why I said at the very beginning that people have got it all mapped out of if you follow this, your kids will turn out, and if you follow this, you're doing it the right way. I'm like, run, because God will show you, but you have to humble yourself and say, Lord, help, I don't know how to do this. But so if every day you're going, Lord, you show me that aspect of undone, I think it's not healthy for your kids to witness all that. I really don't. And I mean, you're going to have a lot of people who see it differently than I do. From my experiences, kids respond. I think anybody responds to strong leadership. Does that make sense? And you don't have to be this mom that's, you know, awful to be around, and your kids are, you know, your kids are the enemy. I mean, we have a great time. My kids are, we love each other. We love hanging out together. So it's not that I'm their enemy, but I'm also not going to come in my leadership and go, now how does this sound? You know what I'm saying? And you can be loving and say, but here's what we're going to do. Very strongly, and when you get resistance or they're not sure, your confidence in leading, and this is in parenting period, it will go such a long way. Ow. It will go such a long way. Do you know what I'm saying? Ow. It will, like, if you know what you want, lead in it. You know what I mean? And if you're like, okay, this is a little more than what I thought they could do, bluff for a minute and then adjust and then lead again. And your kids will love that. Does that make sense? And it lets them know, oh, she's in charge. But have you ever been around kids who don't know who's in charge? You know, you come up here to church or your church and you watch a whole bunch of kids, and if whoever's leading, the kids don't get in charge, they're crazy, aren't they? And have you ever had those days where it's like you think, what happened to my kids today? And I have to look, I'm like, Lord, how do I lead? How do I lead better? How do I give structure and listen for you? And every day, learning what you learned previous day and the week. And it's this ongoing learning process with it, but really giving that strong lead. And I think people in general follow strength. So, find strategies. Okay, so this is where you're going to get really, 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 really practical. So for me, I would find strategies. So let's say I had toddlers and I'm trying to teach kids. I would have everything from really, really fun manipulatives that I would have for the little ones. I had a friend, she had like 10 Ziplocs, and every Ziploc was this incredible game or thing that you had, manipulatives that you did, and she would pull it out with each subject, and that little one would sit with them. Or books. I think one of the things that we do wrong in trying to do this is we try to throw the toddler way over here instead of learning to incorporate it in. I know it's easier, we think it's easier, but I think in the long run we sabotage ourselves. Does that make sense? Because we're focused on this one that we're trying to school, forgetting we now just developed some really bad capacities in this one that later I'm going to have to undo. So it's like thinking in terms of my family, all my kids, I've got to get this one's math in, I've got to get their science in, I've got to sit here and read to this one, but this one's coming up too. How do I give to them as well? So with toddlers, incorporating them in as much as you can. Does that make sense? So like for me, it was like if we're doing science, I would have some kind of science for them. And some, I mean, I had a couple of them that you just give them a notebook or some that looks like a workbook and some crayons and pens, and you go, now you do your work and line them out as seriously as you can, just like you did the older one, and they buy it. You know what I mean? They love it. And I tend to talk to my kids too, and take them seriously, and don't just, everything's this, fun and whatever. It's like, we have a great time, but it's also that I take you seriously, and then they take it seriously. Does that make sense? Even if they're 2, they'll love that they have their job, and they have, okay, well, you're going to use mama's pen, and you're going to this and that. Or when you're reading, give them something to read, but teach them. And if you can tell within the first week, they're not like jumping into the program, don't worry, it takes a little while. But if you give up too quickly on some of those strategies, you never train them. So I think just like you train your kids to sit still in public, or don't scream in public, or sit still in church, it's the same type of thing. It's that you are training them to work alongside. That, okay, brother's doing, big brother is working on this. No, you can't touch that right now. You're going to do this. This is your job. So as much as you can, I think incorporating them instead of having them babysat somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, okay, you're going to go stay in this little corner, and then what happens all day long? You're going to, no, get back over there. Your toys are over there. Okay, now we're going to come over here. And then it's just this constant thing, and it doesn't work for anybody. I think, and so look for some of those things that you can tell that are, and if I had a hard concept I was going to be teaching the child, I'd pull something out that I hadn't brought out very much. Something that I know would really intrigue and fascinate. And as you can tell, certain manipulatives or games or things that normally would occupy them aren't, put it up and bring other things out. I kind of would have a season of 3 months and bring certain things out, pack it away, and then bring new things out, but watch what they respond to. With babies, same thing. Incorporate them in, have them with you. Sometimes if you have a fussier baby, it is a challenge, and knowing that they won't always be like that. And so really, that's another strategy, is to work nap times and work rest times along that. So certain subjects, have y'all found that in teaching your kids are easier to do with little ones right there, right? It's like, I can hold the kid, I can be proud. It's like, no, you're doing great, you're doing this. In other ones, you are sitting there and you have to be completely involved. I think the best way is to wait until you have a break with that little baby, or that toddler, like when they take a nap, and be strategic. That's why it goes back to making sure you have a schedule. If you know when that nap time is, and I know some people go, oh, well, we just nap according to, when they feel like it. I think having a schedule is great. When everyone knows when they're going to eat, everyone knows when they're going to sleep, and really working with those children, because that is how you're going to get some things done. Does that make sense? So those harder subjects where they need you completely right there, that's that time to, when the baby's down for naps, and we hit it, well, let's go, but then make it fun, make it exciting, and this older one gets, okay, this is my time. The other thing that is a strategy that is so important, and this is like way overview of family, and you might not think you care about it right now or in the thick of it, but try to remember you care about it, is always think in terms of, I want when my kids think back on family, that they think of it as the safest place on earth. When they think back on home, they think back on family, they want to be there. They love each other. And for me, it is a huge strategy that I don't want fighting. I don't want love not flowing. Relationship is huge to me. And so, yes, I need the science learned, the math learned, and it will get learned. It is when you have bad attitudes or you have kids at each other, take the time. Take the time. Even if you go, there's been times I'm like, okay, pause. I'm not having this. We will not live like this. Do you know what I mean? We are going to learn to love each other. We're going to, whatever it is, in finding and making certain that love is flowing. Because here's what happens. Let's say you're teaching this older one. The little one's constantly messing up. And if your attitude is to come at this one or to get on to the big one, or that you allow them to just be at each other, you don't see long term what's going to happen with that family. And for me, that was a huge important thing that I'm after, is that I think that family unit, they can learn how to get along with people. They can learn a lot about the body of Christ within a family. That they can learn how to be selfless. They can learn how to consider one another. They can learn how the whole thing of love does not seek its own. But that, if I'm not ever thinking about that, and I'm just like trying to get through this day, what happens is I allow certain attitudes to come up. I allow this older one to treat this younger one constantly in a way that I would never want that. But because we got to get the science done, I'm allowing it. Does that make sense? So think about, what do I want overall for my kids, for my home, for my family? Is there peace here? What do I see that I ultimately want? And then lead in that and be relentless in that. Ask the Lord for strategies. You know, if you've got this uptight little firstborn, which most of us do, you know, those firstborns that, you know, high achievers and, you know, is ask the Lord, you know, you have an opportunity to break through with them and to teach them things that one day their boss doesn't have to teach them, right? And the Lord can use this little one. But if you just try to, it's like you don't want to ever have to deal, you're just trying to get through the activity, but you don't deal with what's needing to be dealt with. My encouragement would be take the time to parent, deal with those attitudes. That's why we get to have them and do some of this, and you will thank yourself later instead of just, let's just get through this. Do y'all follow what I'm talking about here? And so it's really important. So like say with the older ones and with the young ones, or incorporating them all in, find any way and every way you can with strategies where when you're halfway through your day and you're at the end of the day, you see unity. Do you know what I'm saying? You see there's peace, there's unity, and there's love flowing. And I know that sounds like that is just like way too much of a goal here, but to me, that is the way. That's one way you will last, you will enjoy it, it'll be a wonderful experience, and your kids will enjoy it. But if every day is chaos and everybody's upset with each other, who enjoys that? And it's not a great learning environment. You know what I'm saying? So finding those strategies where it brings life. Does that make sense? So let's see. Ages, abilities, finding hands-on things that older ones can also help younger ones in. I always, in putting things together for my kids, I've always, okay, here's what I'm giving to the older ones. And an older one might be a 6-year-old. You know what I mean? But then there's also always strategies throughout the day where this older one is also loving on and giving to and teaching a younger one. And I think that makes for, I mean, one, it's really good learning, and it only solidifies certain things they've already learned. But then it helps that younger one understand and that this is what we do. We're learning and we're part of it. So also be creative with certain times. If you're trying, like you bought these great looking desks and here's where we're going to do school, but you find the couch is better, or outside in the afternoons in the fall is better because the little one stays occupied, ditch the desks and do what you need to do at home to get those strategies done. But don't ditch the trying to give it. Sometimes people go, well, I tried it and tried it. We're just going to forget it and hopefully it works out. You know, make certain you do all that they're needing, but find the creative strategies to get it done. And sometimes reading time is great to do with an older one when the little ones have gone to bed at night. Don't hesitate to do it in the evening. Do you know what I'm saying? Weekends. I don't know why we don't learn on weekends, but I think weekends are great, you know, and projects and all those kinds of things. And I think also really looking at, you know, just like we have certain weaknesses and strengths, look at with your children, their strengths and weaknesses. And I would say it's easy, like I think in teaching kids, it's really easy to go, okay, here's your strengths, here's how you learn, this is all that we're going to do. But also have their, in your mind going, okay, here's their strengths, this is how I'm going to give to them. But I'm also wanting to work on their weaknesses. You know what I mean? And have strategies that work on those weaknesses too. And who better equipped to do it than you guys? Their mom, right? Their dad, their parents, and giving them, and then you see all that. So in that, one big thing in co-teaching and having kids and whatever is look at distractions and time stealers. And I mean that for us. So who would, like, there's some obvious ones. What would y'all say are some of the biggest time stealers in your day? The obvious distractions. There you go, our phones, right? And back years ago, I would have said it's, you know, afternoon talk shows where moms got caught. I don't think people get caught with that anymore. Or, you know, talking on the phone, and now it's this Instagram and everything else. And it's great, it can be a tool, but I think that if you have little ones, it's really important you set something up for yourself that you don't let that steal your time. And phones can, and I don't think people realize how long they're on them and how much they're distracting. And you think in terms of, you know, you can give a concept in a really good, in 20 minutes, you can give a crazy good concept, right? But it's like, you need that time to give that, right? But if you're, I gotta finish this, I wanna look through it, I mean, you could spend an hour and not even realize what just happened. And so really looking, especially at the beginning of your day, I kind of set things up with my kids. We didn't watch stuff at the beginning of the day. We didn't do, like, I mean, we never did movies or TV or phones or anything. When you start your day, you're focused. I think everyone's minds are smart or more like this at the beginning of the day. We always did math at the beginning. We always did harder subjects at the beginning, but we also start in a way that you don't have any of those distractions. So that's one, phone, Instagram. What are some other distractions y'all see? Do y'all have any other ideas that y'all see, distractions that come in?
I'd say if you don't have a plan for housework, it's easy to get busy. Like, oh, I'm going to put on a load of laundry, now I'm going to do some dishes, other things. Instead of having a weekly or a daily thing of this is when those chores get done, it's easy to just get busy. And you're even being productive.
Yep, that's a good one. I think that's really key. So have that plan of when you do those things, and so that when you are working with this child, or when you're parenting, when you're schooling your kids, that nothing takes away from that. For me, I think eliminate. Also during this season of life, we think it's going to go on forever and ever, especially those when you have little bitty kids, you know. I think when you have like 2 little ones, my first 2, it was like, oh my cow, this lasts forever, every day. But it goes by so fast, too fast. And so think in terms of this doesn't last that long, but I want to do everything I can. So for me, I think it's really important to also evaluate and eliminate any activities or relationships. It sounds really harsh. I don't mean it this harsh. Eliminate activities. We'll pause on the relationship part in a second. That don't bring life and that don't promote and that don't help this. And I mean, I'm all for ministry. We love on people, we whatever. But when it's time to give to my kids, it's time to do something with my kids, I have this long in their life. I don't have very much time with them in their life. Do you know what I'm saying? And I know that sounds crazy because you're like, well, your parent, they're with you forever. They're not. They're really not. And they're at this stage for this long. It's like, this is a great time to give it. But if I'm so distracted with, I just think there's sometimes relationships and activities and things that totally call your mind and heart away from this season of life. And you don't get it back. You know, how many of y'all understand that it's like, if you get too involved with stuff, it can create so much, it's like your heart's just tied up with relationship drama. There's no time for it. And who does it take away from ultimately? Your kids. Do you know what I'm saying? If this is what I want to do, it's like, I don't get this time back. I want to pour all that I can in. So ask yourself and be honest, what steals my time? But what steals my peace? You know what I mean? What steals my focus? Where I'm not all in every day. And if you can tell, identify that, and then say, okay, God, what is it that are some things that can bring me peace, that I feel settled? And those are the things for right now in this stage in life that you go, that's what I need. And that sounds selfish, but think in terms of, this is for giving to my kiddos. Does that make sense? And so what I want to feed on, what I want to take in is life-giving. And I think that is, it's like you go, well, how does that help me co-teach anything? It's not practical. That is probably one of the biggest things to me is the right focus and that what's pouring into you. Because here's this idea, I'm like, I've heard people say forever, it's like, how do you make your kids love the Lord, and how do you make them spiritual, or how do whatever? I'm like, it's like, so it starts with, I mean, what are they going to see in you? So if your relationship is the same thing with the Lord, or what you're doing, they watch. And so many things that you're wanting to teach them is because they're watching and they're modeling you. And so if you're somebody that's constantly caught up in the relationship drama, and you're out of rest, or everything gets you uptight, I promise you, they will model it. And it may show up differently, and you may think, oh, it's their daddy coming out in them. But it'll come out. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever seen like stressed out little 3-year-olds? Yeah, it's like, oh, well, that's me. Okay, so they just got all, and so allow the Lord to work on it. And He didn't give these kids to 50-year-olds, you know, once they finally found peace, and some of them didn't. But it's like He gave them to us. You know, He gave them at the stages He did. And so it's like, okay, so Lord, teach me. How do I do this? And He opens those doors. He gives you wisdom. He shows you how to do that. But being honest with yourself, Lord, how do I start my day in that right way? How do I have the right focus? Lord, show me those things that are causing me to just live in chaos or unrest. Do you know what I'm saying? And then get those things out of your life. And I really mean it. Like, if there's something I can see that doesn't bring life to my heart, I'm like, well, that's it. It's not worth it. Do you know what I'm saying? And I also constantly tell myself, I have this long with my kids. Am I out of time? Oh, I am way out of time. Okay, last thing, bring life, bring positivity. I think there's something that a lot of times I hear in parenting, especially among moms, and I've heard it for years, is it's this, we kind of wallow together in the difficulty of it, and there's sometimes it can be helpful to talk about what's hard, but really encourage each other. This thing of, I just can't. You know, I always tell myself, you know, I can't, but He can. He said, I can do all things because He strengthens me. You're right. In and of yourself, in and of myself, I can't do it. but he lives in me and he strengthens me to do it. And so I have to 100% believe that every single day, and I bring that to the table. Does that make sense? So I also think in terms of every day I want to bring what's positive. I don't want to bring the negativity. I want to bring what's life in my home. And I can tell you that makes a huge, huge difference. So if you have questions in a little bit, feel free to ask me. Go ahead.
It's kind of totally off subject, but because you're such a veteran, it's maybe you can get it together or comments bags, but do you use any tools to like figure out the different learning styles of your kids and then kind of how to teach them?
Yeah, and I can share with you in a minute. I'll come talk to you in a minute. I'm a geek about that kind of stuff.
Awesome.
I think it's really important to know how your kids learn, how they process, how they take in information, how they make decisions, how they are, and then as their personality grows. I also think it's important to know their weaknesses, and in our home, I love to kind of shine light on some of that, and so they're comfortable with what their strengths and weaknesses are, and they're okay with it. When you walk around with adults who it's like they think they've got to know it all, and it's like you're God's gift to whatever, and you can be whatever. You don't. You know what I mean? You have your strengths and you have your weaknesses, and being really comfortable with that within a family, I think, is really good. But also those strategies of how to break through this one, I find it really fun to learn. Like I love learning all that, so I can share with you some of those things that I love, and I think it really helps. So last thing I would say is that I think it's really easy to take each day and go, God, here's what I need. Or you tell your husband, here's what I need. Or you constantly tell your friends, here's what I need. But one of the biggest things I've seen in all of this is to offer to the Lord this idea of, Lord, you know what I need? Just like if your kid every single day told you everything they needed, it's like, well, you don't know what you need, right? You're a child. And in the same way before the Lord, saying, God, you know what I need, and you will provide that. As opposed to constantly this thing that goes, okay, here's what I need, and you're putting it in your husband's lap or in everyone's lap around you, and instead go, no, you know what I need, God, and I've seen him work, and I've seen him move, and he will give you what you need. But love doesn't seek its own. That's one of those things as a mom that I say every day. Love does not seek its own, but he will meet what I need here. So if you have any questions, practical, anything like that, I'd love to talk with you.